So we'll be starting, and we should, once we start, we rarely stop. So, and they would have to take something very big to stop us once we get started. We'll just keep going till the end. And what will happen, like in the last 2 minutes, I'll just bring it back, and then we'll just I'll close us out and make sure that we end on time. So,
Vicki, should I give you the link?
oh yes, if you could, yes, that would be great. Here, just 1 second. Oops. Just looking for what I did with my phone. Okay, here, just 1 sec.
I just texted you the link whenever you're ready.
I'm going to say, I think we'll just have to, you can send it to me, and, oh, here it is. Okay. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Okay. Here we go. Actually, Richard, can you take those two boxes out too? The blank boxes and the one that says Think Twice Waiting Room? Is that possible or no?
That's only on your computer. That's not what's going over the air.
Oh, okay. Okay, so never mind. Yep. Thanks.
Tell me when you're ready to go on the air.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let me restart the timer.
Okay, I'm not seeing the timer, by the way. I can set my phone if you want. That's easy enough.
Wait, okay, can you see the timer now?
It's all right. I set my timer, so we're good.
Wow. All right. Well, then I'm just going to shut down the timer.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Go ahead and start your timer, and then wait a moment of silence and start the show.
Okay. So, welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded by Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thank you so much, Richard. And thanks, too, to our friends at WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station at 91.3 FM, coming out of Buff State. Thank you so much to Greg Harvey and all of our friends at Buffalo State University and WBNY. And when I think of thankfulness, I think of gratitude, I think of BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and really wise people everywhere know that thankfulness and gratitude is so key to the courage and the attitude that we really need to get where we need to go in this world, no matter what kinds of hardships and trauma people have experienced. And certainly people who've been enslaved have so much so, and certainly the indigenous people in this continent and this hemisphere, I should say, and especially I will mention the Haudenosaunee and the Seneca or Anundawaka, which we are on land that has been stolen really from the Anundawaka Seneca people, the Haudenosaunee, from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, taken through trickery and lies and violence, and tremendous violence. And in spite of that, they still start everything with thankfulness and started off with the Ganonyo, which basically thanks everybody that makes the gathering possible. Thanks Mother Earth for giving us everything we need for a good life here on Earth. And then thankful for the living waters without which we couldn't exist, for all the wonderful plants and animals. And then they might go through them one by one. So very many of the different species that we're blessed to still have and need to protect. And the trees, which provide the very oxygen that we need, that hold the earth together, the actual ground, support the ground. And then the leaders and teachers that help us so much. And of course, the creator and the love that animates it all. And so we're so grateful. And so then for the Haudenosaunee, they would say Nyahweh, and the people would say Nyo. So I'll say Nyahweh, and you can say Nyo. Nyahweh.
Yo.
Thank you. Or the Tuscarora, they say Je. But anyway, so and certainly in our African friends or indigenous African or African American friends often say Ashe, or just Shukran, gracias. So many ways of being thankful. So and I am thankful that we have this wonderful group of guests on the show tonight, and our topic, very key topic, is international law is key. So we would be in such a much better place, and the international law gives us everything we need, sort of like Mother Earth, everything we need to have a peaceful world if we only paid attention to it. So I want to go around and thank, first of all, Reverend Claudia de la Cruz. Reverend de la Cruz, Claudia, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And we are always grateful for IFCO Pastors for Peace, all the wonderful work that you do. I know you just came back from Cuba, right?
Yeah, we were part of the Nuestra America convoy, which brought together hundreds of people from different parts of the world in solidarity with Cuba after this last intensification of aggression by the U.S. onto the Cuban people.
So much to talk about there, and we're so very glad and grateful. And you're actually coming to Buffalo, which is very exciting, and we'll talk about that some more too. So thank you so much for all the work you do at IFCO, and more to follow about Cuba. And then Hussam Ghanim, Ghulam, I'm sorry, I always do that.
Ghanim.
Hussam, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Well, first, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
We're so grateful that you found time to come, and certainly we want to talk, about Palestine and what's going on there. I know that you're so deeply involved, so deeply committed, and so are we.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation, and yes, hopefully we'll have a very fruitful discussion about international law and its importance in the different scenarios that we're going to touch on.
Right. So we're so grateful for you coming on. Thank you so much. And then last but not least, Josephat, I'm saying it right, Josephat. Now here's where I really get the challenge. Wait, I know I could do it. Wait, don't tell me. I am Muremye.
Close enough.
Muremye? Okay, no, you say it. Tell us, how do you say it?
Yamuremye.
Yamuremye.
Yes, perfect.
Oh,
Wow, you
I'll
did
get better.
really great.
I'll get better with a little time. But anyway, so wonderful to have you come on. We appreciate you so much from the Banya Mulenge community, talking about what's going on. The Banya Mulenge are in Congo and a little bit in Rwanda, or in that just in that general in between area.
They're in Congo, so we are Congolese people, but some fled the war and then they are refugees in Rwanda.
Right. So they are there too. So we'll talk about that too. And certainly Congo has had so many problems for so long. So thank you for coming on and talking about that too.
My pleasure.
So what we like to do is start off in a positive way with the thankfulness and then follow it up with our topic. What are the values that we think of in connection with this topic? So we'll just go around and just thinking about when you think of international law, and the situations that these various geographic places in our world are suffering, what are the values that you think of? So we'll start with Reverend Claudia.
Well, I think it's important to say that although this war drive, because that's what it is, it's a war drive that has been manufactured by the U.S. government administrations, not only Trump, but historically, it has been a war machine that has impacted the world. Although there are different geographical locations, people are suffering from the same root of the problem, which is U.S. imperialism. So when we think about values, right, and we think about the international law or international institutions, we need to take into consideration what U.S. imperialism is and how interconnected it is to international bodies and international law. You can't detach one thing from the other. And we have been seeing more of that reality, specifically with Gaza. And I know, Huzam is going to speak more on that, but it's important for us to see how connected these territories are in the war machine and how imperialism is attempting to reorganize itself internationally. And reorganizing itself internationally to be able to maintain dominance means that these institutions are also showing what their limitations are. So although there is an international law that basically says that no government should sell weaponry to another government that is conducting genocide, we see that the United States is doing that with the colonial state of Israel. And they have been lawless. The only problem now is that the problem for them and the opportunity for us is that the world is seeing the level of lawlessness of the United States. So when I think about values, I think about two different types of values. I think about the values of a system that is a global system, that is U.S. imperialism, that is capitalism, which values profit over people. And I think of the people who resist and whose values are attached in defense of life.
Right.
So these are two opposing forces that are in struggle right now worldwide. And I'll leave it there.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, that is very critical. So important. And making those distinctions as well of what, we really have to prioritize and just be clear about what we need, and what the world needs. So, Hassan, what would you say?
I would say that it seems that in the last 50, 60 years, a lot of effort was spent to develop these international laws. A lot of thinking goes into the details of what constitutes legal versus illegal and what constitutes a piece of that legislation versus a war-driven, and that we are now observing a complete demolition of all that effort, all that goodwill that got into these laws and regulations that is almost all the nations accept, or let's say most of the nations accept. And I would like to add that actually these laws also are the United States laws. Many of these laws are on the books in the United States.
Right.
What I think we are suffering from, which is the issue that maybe we'll talk about, is why these international laws and the US laws as well are not being respected, followed, and actually then brought to justice when people violate them. And that brings me to what the Deputy Chief of Staff of the White House, Stephen Miller, have said bluntly that we are the superpower and the superpower can get to do whatever it wants. Not what the laws says, not what the international treaties oblige us to do, but it's the law of the power. It's not the power of the law that is now leading all this chaos that we are observing. And the minute we go back to those international laws and its applications, I think we will be able to at least make some sense of how to bring back peace into all these areas with conflicts, disputes. But unfortunately, it is now the law of power that is driving everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is so, again, so right on, so very true. And last but not least on this, so Josepha, what would you say? You think when you think of international law and the situation for your people, what values do you think of?
First, laws or international laws are made to protect and keep order for the people or the world citizens.
Mm-hmm.
But in the past many years, we have seen that declining because they're not being used as they were formed to be used. I would mention a little bit on accountability. There's many governments or many states that are not being held accountable for what they're doing, especially in my country. Our own government is killing its own people, but there is just silent. And you could see it in Gaza, everywhere you go. I would say more specifically, accountability is not working on international laws, and which is supposed to be like the number one, hold these people accountable who are doing these bad stuff, so who are committing war crimes against humanity.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I know that I feel somehow we've lost Hassan. Hopefully he can join us back in. The values I think of, I usually mention truth and love because they always apply. I think of Reverend Dr. King saying that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. And that is what we need. So the truth of the matter of what's going on in these various places that we're saying, and really all of the world, how law and international law or even our domestic laws, whether they're getting followed or not. So the truth is that they're not getting followed, and they're only used as an excuse and convenience when it's at the convenience of the people in power, right? So that's the truth of the matter, that there's all kinds of breaking of these laws, and the greatest purveyor of violence in the world is my own government. Another Dr. King quote that is still as true as ever before. And of course, love, because we love each other, because people are suffering. That is why we're even having the discussion. That is why these laws exist, is to protect people, is for reverence for life. That's what they're meant to do. So that is what we try to make them do. And that is what we'll try to make them do from here. So then that's something to frame our discussion. But it's so much of that, of what is and isn't happening, especially with accountability, with the lack of reverence for life. There's such there and different sets of values that where the values that are not good values. So they're values that should be way down on the list, are just atrocious. So here we are, and we are, and we find the similarities in these situations in a lot of respects. So let us do that. Look a little more depth about these three parts of the world, and they're not the only ones. Sudan is in a terrible state. Ukraine, all over that. Lebanon, Iran. We can name place after place after place after place. Haiti. Just so. But we'll just focus for now. Not that you can't use examples from other countries if you want to, but let's look at the situations in the three places that you each are knowing most about. So, Reverend Claudia, please tell us what's going on about Cuba and the heinous. I do want to say I went to. I need to say full disclosure. I went with IFCO, with Pastors for Peace, to Cuba in 2019. And what a wonderful trip it was. What a wonderful, just huge and so impressive, so inspiring what was going on there, what the people do in spite of the babyish and illegal and immoral acts of our government. So I'll just start with that. And so please catch people up to speed on what's going on with Cuba.
I think a lot of folks have come to learn about the 65-plus-year blockade that the United States has imposed on the people of Cuba, because it is the people of Cuba that are suffering.
Right.
And that has been intensified. It was intensified during the first Trump administration, and it was more intensified as of last month with a blockade of fuel, which means for the Cuban people that their hospitals won't have electricity or don't have electricity, which means that the polyclinics that exist in every community, every block has a community clinic in Cuba that is free and is accessible to everyone who needs it, with a family doctor that tends to the needs of the people who live in that block. And those polyclinics are suffering from the blackouts that have been from 12 hours to 48 hours or more, which means that if there is medicine in those polyclinics that, like insulin, for example, that needs to be refrigerated, it goes bad. What it means to hospitals where children are in need of transplants is that those transplants, those surgeries cannot be performed. One of the main hospitals in Cuba that does childcare and is a pediatric hospital, William Soler, used to do 10,000 surgeries for children in need for free, again. And in the last year, they were only able to perform a little bit over 2,000 surgeries. In the last couple of months, less than what they had expected to do, according to the years prior. And so what we're talking about is a healthcare crisis that has been imposed by the fuel blockade. What we're talking about is an energetic crisis that has been imposed on the people of Cuba. The electric grid is very old, and because of the blockade that has existed for over 6 decades, they have been unable to change a lot of the pieces. Not because they may not have the money to purchase it, but because other countries are sanctioned if they do business with Cuba. There is a sanitary crisis that is happening as well because of the lack of fuel. There isn't a possibility to pick up the garbage as they regularly would. There is a transportation crisis that is also happening where a lot of the children, we visited schools, a lot of the children have had to have their schedules reorganized by the schools and the teachers because Cuba is resourceful in that way. It reorganizes itself and it plans itself according to the needs of the people. They have reorganized class schedules so that some teachers actually go into communities and teach cohort of students in those neighborhoods, or they have reorganized the way in which students are coming in and the times that students are coming in to allow them to walk to school. And so although the country is being strangled in so many different ways, and there's a direct attempt from the United States to create a crisis that pushes regime change in Cuba, the people of Cuba are very united in their notion and understanding that they prefer to have sovereignty and live with dignity than be slaves to the United States. And so they are creating all sorts of possibilities. They are going back to plans that were there during the 90s, during the special period. They are resurging, looking into community gardens, urban farming, things that were there before to be able to solve some or alleviate some of the problem, depending a lot on solar panel. Cuba only produces 39% of the electricity it consumes. So that means that it doesn't necessarily produce a lot of the electricity that they need, because the fuel that they have that is produced in Cuba has a lot of sulfur, so it's not the type that they need to be able to do agricultural work to keep the lights on. And so they're depending a lot on solar panels, which was also part of the plan in Cuba to be able to move into renewable energy by 2030. So it's accelerating that process as well. And so, I think that in many ways, for many decades, for over 60 decades, the United States has utilized a genocidal policy against Cuba, attempting for Cuba to surrender. And they don't necessarily understand that the will of the Cuban people to be free is stronger than anything that they could actually do against the Cuban people. And so I share that saying that the situation is dire. That is a critical situation, that there's a lot of show of solidarity from around the world. Mexico has shipped humanitarian aid. We saw that Russia brought in oil tanker. We've seen, Turkey has also. So we've seen China has been a leading force in bringing solar panels. And there has been people-to-people solidarity more now than there has been before, I think, in many ways, because people understand the critical moment in which Cuba is. But I do want to say, and I think it's important to mention, that the Cuban people, are not waiting for a savior. They're not waiting for people outside of Cuba to come and interfere, whether it is the Trump administration or any U.S. administration to come and change anything in Cuba. They're also not depending on folks of good heart and goodwill to come in and change anything. They are very resourceful. They are the agents of their own society. They are politically strong and people who have the level of education and skills to build their society. What Cuba needs is our steadfast solidarity in ending the blockade on Cuba, in ending the siege on Cuba. And so that's what we are currently working on. And that's the spirit that we came back to the United States with.
So, and I just want to say before we go further that for those of you who are local, who are listening to this and who are listening to it right around the time that it's being broadcast, that we're very excited that when Reverend Claudia comes, she's coming, we're going to have an event on April 30th, 7 p.m. at Pilgrim St. Luke's Church, UCC Church, there on Richmond. All of this is on the Western New York Peace Center listserv, social media, and our website. So we're very, very excited to host. And it is, it will be a fundraiser as well, but with a free will donation, of course. And we're just excited to have you coming and to publicize that. And it will be a wonderful and very inspiring. And that's what we're calling it, is breaking the blockade, which you did by going there, which even I did in 2019, although it's just only gotten worse. But crisis equal to opportunity. So we're going to make that change. We're going to get it some kind of way. Speaking of crisis, and well, it's got to be the opportunity because the crisis couldn't be more dire. Hassan, if you would talk about what's going on in
Sure. And shifting geography, but not shifting the disasters and not shifting from the suffering of the people.
exactly.
Unfortunately, yes, it's just the geography change.
Right.
And while I don't want to move away from the genocide that took place and still taking place in Gaza, I don't want to move away from that. But I think I want to start talking about the West Bank first.
Please.
Because as we have for the last 3 years or so witnessed the genocide in Gaza, I think we may be also, the ground is being prepared for a similar one in the West Bank. Maybe it's starting at a different rate and a different method, but the conclusion could be similar. And because we're talking about international law, I want to bring up this issue of West Bank and what's going on there now as a clear violation of all possible international laws that come to a territory where it's being occupied. And we only have few territories in the world that are occupied, but this is one of them. And international law clearly gives certain guidelines and rulings in terms of what the occupier is supposed to do and what it is not supposed to do. So before we start even what the action should be, I guess the occupation, any occupation is illegal
Right.
and needs to be addressed as it is. It's an illegal enforcement of laws of the occupier on the occupies, and that needs to be addressed as a separate topic. But while we are living under occupation, there are certainly certain rules, not only international, but also U.S. rules,
Right.
that needs to be addressed and respected and followed. The main rule that the Geneva Convention, the Fourth Geneva Convention mentioned is that the occupier cannot replace and change the features of the land that they are occupying. And what the Israeli government is doing for the last 60 years, and it's intensifying now at a much faster pace and much wider range, they are actually replacing the population by allowing their citizens to move into occupied land and expanding the illegal settlements and displacing the natives and the people who live there, the Palestinians, away from their land, moving eastward and out of the territory C, which is basically, according to Oslo agreement, is under full Israeli military control, to the degree that Palestinians who live there are not allowed to build in their own land. 95% of building permits are being rejected. Therefore, Palestinians find no other way but to build without a permit because their families are expanding, increasing in numbers, getting married, having kids. The house is small, so you need to build a couple more, rooms. And you will see that the demolition operation of the Israeli army is up and running in every area in the West Bank, almost nonstop, forcing people to demolish their own house. Sometimes they do it themselves with the excuse that you don't have a permit. At the same time, the permits for Israeli settlers who come from all over the world, who have no legal right to that land, to that territory, are being welcomed, supported, empowered, not only financially, and unfortunately a lot of that financial support comes from the US through our tax money and through donations from a lot of venues that consider this a charitable event, unfortunately. And their settlements are just expanding to the degree that is actually now created a West Bank that is not connected. It's not one territory anymore. It's just small little cantons, small little residential areas disconnected by settler areas, and then another residential area and disconnected. So it's totally disconnected territory that you cannot call one cohesive land anymore. So with this Israeli governments have continuously violated the Fourth Geneva Convention by changing the land and displacing the population. And doing so, they're allowing a group of settlers who are, by a lot of legal organizations, including some in the US, are committing war crimes, and they have sanctions against them. But unfortunately, the Israeli army is giving them the reign to do whatever they want without intervening. They are harassing the residents, the Palestinian residents. They are preventing them from collecting the crops. They're burning their houses, their cars. They are chasing them away from their land and their herds continuously. You'll see people like a poor shepherd with his small little herd trying to just, survive on this small number of animals, and a few Israeli settlers will come and chase them out of the land or take their herd and sometimes burn things. And it's not obviously hidden now that the Israeli government has approved in the Knesset what they call the annexation of the West Bank. So we're not just in a displacement, which is again against the law, and replacement, which is against the law. We are now into annexation of the land with the full blessing of the Knesset, which is the parliament, as well as the current Israeli far-right government. And unfortunately, our government, the US, has not really done any significant effort to implement their own rules and regulations, because all these Israeli settlements are illegal under US laws.
Right.
They are totally illegal. There is no way in our laws that this is allowed, because we follow international law. And I'm going to come to that selectivity of following the international law at some point in the discussion. But for now, we're just talking about the current affairs that's going on in West Bank. So in short time, I'm not sure, maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, we don't know, what I can see another large Nakba, a large displacement of Palestinians who live in the West Bank to go somewhere else. Because the powers are tilting enough now, because not only you have settlers who live in the land, they are armed settlers. Close to 400,000 people under the supervision of the war criminal Ben Gvir has been given arms, and they're chasing the Palestinians with these machine guns. So I can see another catastrophe happening soon, not maybe at the scale of what we've seen in Gaza. Could be worse, actually, because there is more land there, but it's going to be done systematically. It's going to be done, it seems, with the blessing of certain superpowers who negate all the laws that they say that they follow and respect. So going back a little bit to Gaza, which is, again, a very sad moment of humanity altogether, a very sad moment of life altogether that we witnessed on live TV, the massacre and the genocide of innocent young children, women, elderly, men, you call it, you name it, the destruction of all infrastructure, hospitals, schools, roads, health centers, and the continuation of the siege. So it's not really different than what Cuba is going through. We in Gaza have suffered a siege that has started in 2007 and just got worse, where even with our US laws, where it says whenever we give military support, whenever we give any financial support, we have to follow international law and allow humanitarian aid to reach the civilians. Now this aid is under full control of the Israeli army, and the amount of food and necessary medications and shelter that is arriving does not meet 10% of the needs, the daily needs of the Gazan people. So the massacre is continuing. The very fragile so-called peace treaty or peace board that Trump has established is not actually preventing the genocidal Netanyahu from committing more crimes on land. So in my opinion, and we are not legal scholars here to talk about the definite answers to legality, but for the normal person, the Israeli government, with the help and support of our government, and the White House have committed almost all violations to international law and U.S. laws. And unfortunately, because I started saying it's not the law, the power of law these days, we're living by the law of power. Unfortunately, there is no one is able to stop that, at least from the leadership. And it's then up to people to start taking action, standing up for what's right, standing up for international law, and standing up for peace. Because without such laws, the strong will eat the weak, the rich will eat the poor, and the suffering will continue. Different time, different geography, but same conclusion.
You know, I first of all, thank you so much, Hassan, for offering all of that. That it is so painful and so terribly wrong in every way. As you said, it's totally against international law in terms of occupation, in terms of the genocidal acts, in terms of the 6 U.S. laws that are being broken, because when a country is credibly accused, not even proven to be doing genocidal acts, that we are not allowed by our own laws and international laws to arm them. And instead, and by the way, so I just want to mention to people, please do contact our senators and your congressperson, and to tell them to stop the bombs and bulldozers. So that's the latest thing of stop the bombs and bulldozers. Those are joint resolutions of disapproval that have been put forward by Bernie Sanders. God bless him. And we just know that's the very least that we can do. And there's war power acts that need to be signed for every one of these conflicts. And certainly there's one about Iran, the War Powers Act about Iran, because if that was illegal, it's supposed to be Congress that decides whether we're going to war or not. So ever since the excuse of 9/11, they just bagged that whole requirement. So that is another thing. But so please, people, do contact both Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand and whoever your congressperson is. Certainly Tim Kennedy needs to hear from all of us again and again and again. So anyway, thank you for that. And I just want to say, war has been illegal since 1927 and 28 and the Kellogg-Briand Pact, just by the way. So anyway, so speaking of which, so let us go on to Josephat, if you would, to describe what the Banyamulenge people are going through right now in Congo, please.
Thank you. To mention what they're going through right now, I will go a little bit back to just give you a brief history on what's going on. In 1885, during the Berlin Conference, they separated Africa, putting borders on every countries. And by that time, the Banyamulenge people were in Eastern Congo, in High Plateau of DRC. In the 70s, there was a war that they wanted to prevent all the Banyamulenge people from voting. So they said any Banyamulenge people is not going to vote for or be chosen in any government positions. And in the 90s, 96, they gave us 6 days to move out of the country or they will wipe us all. And it was in 1996, it was only 2 years from the genocide that happened in Rwanda, which happened in 1994 against the Tutsis. So it's something that started back in the days that keeps getting worse and worse. So it got worse in 2017. In 2017, it got worse. They started killing people, children, burning them, eating some people alive, which is a tragedy. By now, because Banyamulenge people usually like to graze cows. We are farmers. We love cows a lot.
Yes.
They stole over 700,000 cows from the Banyamulenge people just from 2017 to right now. If you think about it, the cows were the milk for the children.
Right.
So the children are starving, they're getting sick. It's they destroyed over 600 villages because we lived in different villages. They were just bombing all the villages. They destroyed over 600 of them in High Plateau of Congo, and over 147 schools were destroyed. I mean, if you destroy a school, it's basically telling people you're not allowed to be smart, you're not allowed to have an opinion, you're not allowed to be intellectual. That's a message. It's a genocide that is going on that people are not talking about a lot, which it's very sad. They bombed and destroyed 57 churches. I mean, no, not 50, 57 health centers.
Mhm.
So if you're destroying health centers,
Terrible.
it's like telling people if we bomb you and you want to go to the health center to, let's say, to get treated, you're not going to find a health center. You're just going to die. You're going to bleed to death because that's the system. They're trying to do that so that they can wipe the whole existence of the Banyamulenge people, and it's very sad. Around 1,500 people were killed in only these few years. It's very sad. Around 130,000 people migrated, not migrated, fled. They became refugees. They left their homes because they were being bombed. So that is the situation that is in DRC. We are being killed by our own government and the government of Burundi too. The Burundi government sent its own army in my country to kill the Banyamulenge people. We're being attacked by drones, not only like ground forces, drones. So the drones are destroying facilities, all the facilities that I mentioned, churches, stuff like that. In January of this year, in a city called Uvila, there was a lot of the Banyamulenge people lived over there. 98% of them fled because they were going to kill all of them at the same time. So they had to flee to a small city called Kamanyura. They're still right now. They are refugees. They don't have food. In High Plateau in Minembwe, we don't have food. People are starving, and drones keep coming and then keep attacking every single day. That's basically the situation that is right now in my country.
Thank you so much, Josephat. So I just want to say the number of international laws that are being broken. I actually do have a Master of Arts in Law and Diplomacy. So I've studied international law. I wouldn't call myself a huge expert, but even also reading people like Craig McIver, who is a huge expert, who's a friend of the show. He's been on our show. I'm blessed to say, numerous times that make it very clear. This is so absolutely illegal, what is happening in every single one of those cases, that killing civilians is illegal. It's illegal to punish a group of people for the actions of a few, which is, we've had that over and over again, the U.S. killing, and that's basically what war is, because civilians are dying. It's not just in the days there were days where people were on a battlefield and it was happening. Those days are very long gone. This is mass destruction of people with bombs, also with the drones. And I want to call out our friends, the Upstate Coalition to Ground the Drones and End the Wars, which the Western New York Peace Center is part of. And actually on Earth Day, I'll be at Hancock Military Base, where I've gotten arrested twice before. I'm not planning that on getting arrested. But by the way, that is one of the big drone centers in the country. We also have one in Niagara Falls, by the way, which is also a drone center. And the drones making people judge, jury, and executioner when they're operating those drones. And when they do a double tap like they do, and so then when the people are going to come and help the medical people, and then they kill them, that is also illegal. Going after hospitals, schools, all the things that you all mentioned, in every case, that is totally illegal. Journalists, going after journalists, that is totally illegal under international law. Proportionality. So one of the things is, in Gaza, for Palestine, the Israelis say, it was terrible what happened, and it's because of October 7th. Well, yes, October 7th was a war crime, was a heinous situation, innocent people dying, which is exactly what these laws are meant to stop. However, proportionality means you don't kill 20 people for every one person, or even more. That proportionality means you can't just do this massive killing. So anyway, I just wanted to throw out some of those international law principles that are well established. And so we know, and who is who is the greatest, not only the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, the greatest purveyor and seller of munitions, war materiel. Well, of course, it's the U.S.
Mhm.
And a lot of the so-called foreign aid that we give is not aid. We're giving a handout to our arms manufacturers by financing them sending weapons all over the world. So I just wanted to mention those facts. Now we're really running short on time because we're trying to cover so much in this show. But I just want to go around and let's focus on what do we want people to do to help. And I mentioned a few things as we've gone around, but please, each of you. So Reverend Claudia, please.
I think what Hussam mentioned, it's really important. We cannot depend on politicians to solve this. I think we have to learn from what has been historically the case in the United States. We're talking about international law, but we should also be talking about how domestic law is not being in any way, shape, and form respected. Where there has been the destruction in many ways of what has been built by movements for decades.
Right.
And so we need to understand that this is a moment of decision for people to decide which side we are on, for people to decide who are the people that we must build with and trust in. And it is not going to be, whether it is Democrats or Republicans, the same people that ultimately are profiting from our misery, the misery of the people in the United States and the misery of the people all across the world. With that being said, we need to reimagine what movement building looks like. What does it mean to have political clarity, understanding who the real enemy is, despite of how it comes, presented to us? Mm-hmm. I think in many ways we're very much focused in the United States and Trump, which is fine. He is a disaster, but he is the product of a system. Right. He is a symptom of a deeper disease. And we need to start dealing with the disease and not the symptom necessarily. And so we need to build a movement that is politically clear, a movement that understands deeply what it means to be in solidarity internationally, understanding that what happens in Gaza affects us as well, that what happens in Cuba affects us as well, that we are the largest family in this planet. We are the working class. We are the people that make the world run. And therefore, we need to be able to have that international solidarity with our siblings. We need to be able to build that level of unity across movements in the United States. The capitalists, the billionaires have benefited for too long from the division of all of us. They fragment people into issues, wherein the real issue is one that is economic and is political. And people like Martin Luther King understood that. People like Malcolm X understood that. People who have fought to transform the system by the root have understood that and have paid a price, we must be willing to sacrifice for the transformation of society.
Reverend Claudia, so beautifully put. This is an obvious reason why you were candidate for president. And if only we could have gotten there, because we'd be, what can I say? That is what we need. So you're so right. Everything that you just shared. Thank you so much for that. Hassan, what would you?
Yeah, I would second what the Claudia has mentioned, that solidarity with each other,
Yes.
unity
Yes.
among humans who care about other humans need to be now our priority, because the reason why all these things are happening is because of some internal weaknesses in the system that the rich, the powerful are capitalizing on, and finding the weaknesses in the people because we are not united. We have not stood with each other. We have not supported each other enough to remove the barriers of religion, race, gender, issues that actually are trivial at this point compared to human life. I cannot say that I don't care about what happens in Congo just because they have a different color skin. That's actually absolutely the reason why these things are happening, because no one is standing for what is right and the truth. Because if you allow one of us to be eaten alive, then you could be next. And no one is immune. The rule of the power can dictate on every group and every minority and every actually race regardless. And therefore unity, solidarity with each other is priority number one. And this is something that we are blessed here in the United States, that we can come together. As you can see in this group of people from different aspects of life, we are sharing same values, and we can stand for the international law and for local laws and call for peace and call for justice all the time. I want to bring another point beside unity, that I want to emphasize that we follow international law, and we'd like international law to be applied equally all the time, with no double standards,
Right.
with no selection based on who is the victim and who is the aggressor. It is very clear that these international laws can be used when the superpowers wanted to use them, but they will be neglected, shelved, ignored, burned, destroyed when the victim is of a different group or not as strong and nobody stand for them. So we need to call for equal application of the law, regardless of what law, local, state, federal, international law, need to be applied equally to everybody. And that's pure justice.
Right.
And without that, we will get lost in a lot of details, because you can bring a lawyer, I can bring a lawyer, and the lawyer can be smarter than my lawyer, and they could twist the law to their benefit, although it is clear who is the victim, who is dying, and who is being besieged, and who is being starved, and who is being killed day in and day out. So unity, justice is what we need to be calling for. And it starts locally. Every community starts locally. You don't have to wait for national movements to come and tell you what to do. It is a human cause. If you are a true human, have heart, and believe in the value of human life, you need to be moving. You need to be not sitting down. You need to be dynamic all the time. So I call in my friends, neighbors, to stand up for whatever right, and do not be afraid. And I actually always tell my friends, and believe it or not, a short movie, a small movie, like a kid's movie called Bug's Life. Bug's Life tells the story of us, the weak,
Right.
the people. When the ants got together, they were able to defeat the grasshoppers.
So,
Grasshoppers don't stand a chance against us.
well, we have to band together, exactly as you say.
Yeah.
You're so right. And I do want to say one thing. International law, or any law, law is meant to approximate justice. That is the purpose of law.
Mhm.
And so what they've been doing is just making illegal things legal. You know, that racism is just actually been legalized by the Supreme Court, who said that they can pick up people based
Yeah.
on appearance or language. So we're not fooled by that. The Germans did that. You know, any tyrant has done that. They changed the law to what they want.
What's a clear indication of that? If I may add one thing,
We're
the
running
Knesset
out.
just approved the killing of prisoners in Palestine
Right.
only for Palestinian prisoners. What more apartheid and racism than this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so terrible, so terrible. Thank you for bringing that. And last but not least, just for a minute, we just have a minute, Josephat. What do you want people to help? How?
Yeah, I'm not going to mention a lot because Claudia and Hassan already mentioned most of them. Being united, we know that we have to be together. But one thing that I want people to do is raise awareness, speak
Okay.
up, speak up. Even though they're giants that we're fighting against, they're mighty, powerful people. But we have to speak up. If strong governments, we have to speak up, tell them the truth, because only the truth can save us. And call the representative, call everybody that just put the word out. That's what I could say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Josephat. You're so right about that. We will do that. We will tell each other. We will tell spreading the word and spreading the truth and love, you know. So all I can say, I'm so grateful to each of you for what you do every day, for what you've done being on this show today and what you've shared. We're so grateful. We are all in this together. And this is Talking Peace. And together we've been talking peace in truth